Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the province and sports media. He joins us now. How are you?
Dare I think back to the famous Sekeres v. Linden bike lane debate and traffic? I just remember listening.
V. Linden?
There was a Linden mat. It was, I mean, this is, 10 years ago. I don't even know. But somehow they got into it. I just remember it being quite...
Must have been during a President's Week. And yeah, a lot of questions that would come up that day. I don't specifically
I just,
remember.
It's burned in my... I don't know why.
I have taken the L on the Bard Street Bridge bike lane because I thought it would create absolute chaos both ways, and really it hasn't had a demonstrably delaying effect. So I have taken that.
And you know what? Let's be honest. Let's be clear. I have to be clear, guys. When I come into the studio now, I generally am on the e-bike, and I'm taking the Hornby Street bike lane right to the studio. So there you go.
Yeah. Yep. No, the Hornby has a very effective bike lane. Yeah.
But
we digress.
Get in that HOV lane. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Get that car.
So
I'm good.
Famously, former Canucks executive Brian Burke has always said and always behaved the same way on the day you're officially mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. He comes in miserable. He is a curmudgeon, or more curmudgeonly than usual, and intentionally, deliberately to show everybody what a day of failure it is for the organization. So, rather than starting on a negative note, Patrick, how about them Whitecaps, huh?
Oh, wow. Holy smokes. I'd written them off. I was just, that's a shame. Whatever the guy's name was that scored for Pumas, I was like, oh, that's a shame. They battled hard. It felt like they were coming. Yep. And then it went the other way. All right, well, this team's a lot better than them. This was inevitable. And then I had to tried to explain Candace away goals. She's not a fan of away goals.
Yeah, no.
She wants outright wins. Matt, I'll tell her. You and her. She wants wins. She doesn't care.
Wins.
This doesn't seem fair. I'm like, this is how they
Everybody
get
knows the rules going in.
Anyway. Thrilling stuff. Glad I got that Fubo subscription.
Not a game.
Yeah, and we have a winner in town. So good on the Whitecaps. Okay. Moving right along here. Who shoulders the most blame for this failure of a season from the Vancouver Canucks? It's our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. You can vote for management. You can vote for players. You can vote for coaches. Mm-hmm. You can vote for just one player. Or you can go completely off the board.
God. Oh, I have to name someone. I don't even get options. See, I was hoping that you'd do the work for me and I could just pick somebody.
You're welcome to put a name on it. We're not preventing you.
Jeez. I mean, do we have to go all the way back? It's too much to go all the way back and saying it was the fatal error was Jim Rutherford's just deciding to sign JT Miller over Bo Horvat. Because listen, Miller was amazing last year. So he dragged them through those playoffs. So I'm not going to do that. I mean, the blow up this year you can go all the way back to deciding to carry on with them. I mean, maybe this was inevitable. I don't know, Patrick Alvin, I guess, for misfiring on the defense signings and not I don't know, man. It's a lot of things. You're asking me to pick one thing? Is it collective? Elias Pettersson.
We're not saying the blame resides with one entity and one entity only. We're saying who shoulders
in the pie chart. Who's got the biggest piece of the pie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to blame Elias Pettersson and JT Miller for.
No, he can
blame
one player. Name one player.
He can blame the two of them.
Okay, so
as a collective for whatever. Setting aside, however terrible things apparently were off the ice. In the end, they were on the ice and they didn't do enough, and I've been clear on that. I suppose management and coaching staff for misfiring on defense and not finding that sort of puck moving. I mean, look how much better they are playing. There has to have been a way to find the collection of defensemen they currently have, at least the style of play last year. Should they have moved Brock Besser last summer? I mean, I love Brock Besser, but that was the time. If you were not going to re-sign him, and like were they not aggressive enough? I mean, I suppose that's hindsight, but like there's a lot of different things. I think they weren't aggressive enough. It's in hindsight, it's surprising how they weren't even more aggressive than they could have been, or than they were, I guess, because look where they got. I mean, they knew that the team was going to step back. They knew that they had a window that no matter how the season's gone, there was always going to be a question about the Quinn Hughes window, right? Fundamentally, he's coming up on unrestricted free agency. That is always going to be a very challenging thing to manage your way through. You can't just assume that one negotiation is going to be like another. I think they weren't aggressive enough in the end. They sat back and they sort of said, well, we can kind of coast through this and sort of have a little dip and we'll be fine and we'll come out the other side of it. And given how at least aggressive they've been in thinking in the previous two seasons, it's a disappointment. So I'm going to hang it mostly on management on this one. I think they just misread the overall picture, and here we are.
You want them to be aggressive last year. Will they be aggressive this year, given all the restraints?
Have no choice.
But I mean, they have no choice. I don't know how they do it. I mean, this is
okay. So you walk away from Besser, which just in and of itself is an aggressive move to some degree. So my question is, they need a $9 million player. If it's not named Brock Besser, they need another $9 million. They need a player of that quality. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like you're looking at the UFA market, I don't see a $9 million player there. And to trade, you need to give to get, and I don't know that they've got the assets that makes them that much demonstrably better. Like they need to trade.
Marner and Ehlers are.
Yeah, I know, but then
Marner's much more.
But Matt, you're giving up Sun, Moon, and Stars to get them, so then you're not just adding to this group anymore.
Two and a half years ago, when Rick Tocchet showed up, let's not forget, the centers were Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, and Bo Horvat. As good a trio of centers you were going to find in the NHL. Right? 1, 2, 3. And now they have Elias Pettersson, and they might not even keep him. Right? Like that is, if you zoom out, for all the little moves, then they've made some good moves. This management team has been pretty coherent, a lot more focused. I mean, I wrote about this earlier in the week. The fact they sent Jonathan Carey-Mackey down, like because the player has been struggling, they were, let's get him, we're not going to push this. And everyone, loved, well, what about McCann and Virtanen? Was that what Rick Tocchet was like? No, I think he was talking about Niels Höglander and Vasily Podkolzin, who just had sort of an overly aggressive introduction to the NHL. But nonetheless, they've ended up with one center, and they're not even sure about him. And there's no centers coming down the pipeline. Like, that's the other failure in all this. And that's a longer view one. That's not just on these guys. That goes back to Jim Benning trading away. That it's not just that they didn't draft Dylan Guenther. They could have drafted a young center there, right? It's saying, well, Adam Gaudette is going to be the guy, and then Adam Gaudette wasn't the guy, and that was all they had, right? Like there are no centers in the system coming that have any intrigue and any usefulness. Like they needed a top end guy, and they misfired. And it's the same thing with Carey-Mackey. Like there were guys on the table. He's still an interesting prospect, but there were guys on the table that might have changed the story, and so that that's the failure right now, is that they're you're right. Like Blake's right. They have to get aggressive, but I don't know how they're going to do it. It's a really, really challenging spot they find themselves in.
Well, they've got $13 million or so in cap space. Yeah. They're going to spend all that, and they may have to peel future assets, guys like Tom Wielander and first round picks to see if they could fill the second line center void. I don't really want to relitigate this, but that was a 9-player draft in 2021, Guenther being the 9th. I mean, sure. Tyler Boucher was a surprise 10th overall. I don't see a center beyond that in the first round other than maybe Cole Sillinger that you would hang your hat on. But there are also some young centers there who haven't even played an NHL game who knows may turn out.
Zach Bolduc looks pretty neat, right? Like I get your point. Like why Johnston went 23, right? Like
Johnston, of course.
But like Johnston, I'm just saying, like in the end,
my bad.
Like I'm just saying, it's not just the point is it's not just that they missed out on Guenther, it's that they missed out on that, and then like the. Klimovich, like everybody said, draft Stankoven. You could have Logan Stankoven right now. Mm-hmm. And they went with the guy that, listen, Klimovich has been okay. He's been, I think, pretty decent this year, but still, you got
no, for sure.
It.
Let's let's not litigate the 2021 draft. I apologize. Quinn Hughes saying what he said to Ian McIntyre.
Yeah.
First of all, you love the fact that he takes the captaincy as a solemn responsibility, right? And that he's taking so much responsibility and accountability for being the leader. He absolutely throws all his support behind Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote and crediting them for the defensive structure and the way they play and how that is going to underpin team success. And we've seen that over the last 2 seasons. Quote, if we add another player or two and have some guys within our group play better next year than they did this past season, I think we can be really, really successful team. We're structured. We don't give up much, and we have maybe the best goalie tandem in the league, blah, 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 blah. Blah. The point is, if we get Rick back and add a piece or two, we can be very successful. He's a pretty wise cat, Quinn Hughes. I interpreted that as a significant message to management and ownership to pay the man, Rick Tocchet. Did you see it likewise?
I took it as him basically laying out, here's what I need to see, in a personal sense, without talking too much about his own situation, but basically saying, here's what I need to see. And one of those things is, I really like this coach. I really have a lot of time for this coach. This is the right coach here. Let's figure this out. Yeah. It was a candid, as candid as he's been all year. I mean, it's been a difficult season. You can tell, Quinn is, he's had to talk a lot about a lot of bad hockey, and he has sessions with us. I don't think he's had a whole lot of fun. So to see him have a good candid conversation was, it's not the way he wanted to do it, but it's the way he had to do it. Made it clear. Like, I took it exactly the same way. Like, he says, I need to see this, this, and this, and I include the coach in what I need to see.
Yeah, and the great news for Canucks, and he's also aligned in that he's talking about adding to the group as opposed to any kind of subtraction, which is going to play well in the owner's suite as well as in, maybe not as well as in management if they have designs on a deeper cut here. But the good news for Canucks fans is he sounds like a guy who is still 100% invested and committed. Yeah. And that could change with another shitty season, but it doesn't sound like there is a massive wound or scar tissue based on this year.
For all the sort of, all the, I don't even know what the word is, all the commentary about what a sort of noisy place this can be to play between us and fans and what have you. Like, the way these guys love being here always stands out to me. That story, I think I talked with this last, I've mentioned this before. That story I wrote last year about how much they love living here, or maybe that was 2 years ago. Anyway, but the fact that Tyler Myers and JT Miller jumped out of their chairs to tell me about how much they love being here, and that's a reiterated every time I talk to Brock Besser. Every time, honestly, you can tell it with Hughes. He brings it up. Like, these guys like being here, but they also want to win. And that, to me, is the overriding factor. Is how are you going to make this what we had last year, and how are we going to make this sustainable, not just be a once-in-a-while thing. That the project is about consistency, both from players, but also from management. I mean, I mentioned that after the deadline, when nothing, that these guys looked around, they heard a lot of noise about some of their teammates. None of that happened, and then there was nobody brought in to make the team better, right? Like, I would have, if I had, I just, that was my reaction. These guys are thinking, well, why didn't you bring anybody in at least? You haven't given us anything else. And, if you're Pete DeBoer on Tuesday night and you looking around and you look at that group of centers and you're like, we lost to that? Like credit to the guys that are doing the work, but I'm going to beat this drum to the end of time that this team has not done enough in terms of building centers, finding centers, and that they need to do more. And that this team is woefully misconstructed right now. Is that a word? Misconstructed?
Yep, I think so. We'll allow it. We'll allow it. I mean, part of that is, to me, Filip Hronek as well. The problem with Filip Hronek, and again, this is not his fault, but in the acquisition of Filip Hronek in the JT Miller trade, I think part of the hope was there's a player there that's a little bit better than his cap hit, and we can use that. They gambled on his health, and even if, and no one's hoping for this at all. No one is hoping for this. But if Filip Hronek's career is in jeopardy here, and the first priority would be, hey, that's tragic for that player.
Yeah.
But from the hockey standpoint, additionally, the Canucks, like with some players, if that happens, you'd be like, well, they get a huge cap hit and they can replace it. They don't get a huge cap hit here with Filip Hronek. They were gambling that he was going to outplay his cap hit. And so that doesn't work in their favor in any way. The best case scenario is that's the last concussion of Filip Hronek's career. He gets in the lineup and is the kind of prospect that everybody was hoping that he would be. But there's no get out of jail free card there with the Filip Hronek contract either. So they have to build their team thinking that Filip Hronek's not there, basically.
Well, there's also the argument, and apologies to whoever said this, because I've seen this in the last few days. It might have been someone who on my mentions of Blue Sky. It might have been someone in a chat. I don't remember who it was. So apologies to whoever that is. Whoever you are, you're going to text me.
Mm-hmm. You get credit, yeah.
And I'll give you credit next week. But there is a way of thinking about that the price, in many ways, the price that the Rangers extracted from the Canucks for taking on the entirety of the Miller contract was that they got to offload Filip Hronek and the problem that he presented.
Right.
That's the other way of looking at it. If he sticks and he has health, that's how you're playing with house money. But
which is additionally sad, though, PJ, that you had to effectively take on a problem for giving a team a 90-point player. Like that's a tragedy as well. Like, come on.
But remember, Miller thought he was going to New York. The owner squashed the deal that Saturday morning, told his GM, go out and make sure and get them to retain. And I think what happened from there is that Chris Drury and the Rangers were able to convince James Dolan, no, hold on, wait a second, boss. We're getting significant relief from what could be a really significant
Well, we're getting a reliable
problem.
We're getting off something that's unreliable and getting someone that we think is more reliable. I mean, obviously they aren't making the playoffs either, so they didn't exactly solve that problem. Listen, Filip Hronek is an interesting player, and I think he brings a dynamic to the team when he's healthy that you can see the difference. And the numbers back that up, by the way, right? Like the Canucks, the Hronek's expected goals, like all the numbers line up. When he is on the ice, the Canucks are at the offensive end, and good things are happening, right? Unfortunately, he's got a really brutal concussion history, and so you don't know if he's going to be able to carry on. I mean, obviously, we saw him on Friday, like when we were at the rink on Friday for practice last week at UBC. He was in evidence, right? Like he wasn't on the ice, but we saw him in workout gear. He's nodded and smiled. He was one of the last guys to leave. Like he clearly is feeling a lot better. Rick Tocchet was very cautious in answering that, but he clearly is feeling a lot better. So that is good news for him.
And maybe the only silver lining to them missing the playoffs is an extra long offseason for him to recover. Maybe but
fundamentally the problem remains, and we know that concussion issues generally don't magically disappear. So
there are cases like Crosby, though, where extended times off make you more resilient.
And listen, a lot of these things are they've evolved in what we understand. I mean, one of the things that happened with Brock Besser, for instance, was realizing that what he actually was dealing with was more whiplash, right? Like that he had to relieve different parts of his system. It wasn't so much his brain; it was more the nerves. Yeah. So these things are complicated. They're not necessarily what you see there up front. But in the end, the fact remains this team has a huge problem down the middle, and Filip Hronek, whether he's healthy or not, is not the full solution. He is a Band-Aid. They need to fix
He makes you feel a little bit better about Suter.
So since you're pounding the table on center iceman.
Yes.
We asked this yesterday on the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Suter at $5 million on a 4 or 5 year deal. You doing that?
Well, I mean, this is the other thing I've been looking at, right? Like I wrote a bit about this on the weekend. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. We were watching, and you can talk all you want about LTIR, but what you really need to talk about is how well constructed their cap is, right? They have two guys on big deals. They've got Jack Eichel on $10 million. They have Mark Stone on $9.5. Right, those are your elite superstar players. That's how much they probably should be making more, but that's good for them. Then you have 3 guys right below that, who are your fascinating secondary. You got Thomas Hertl, who on that 6.75 deal that the Sharks signed him to, that lasts forever, but hell of a player, great value there. William Karlsson, who's been a great second line center for that team, is now 32, 5.9. Ivan Barbashev, $5 million. Where do you put Pius Suter in their category? Because if you do, then yeah, that's a great number. But if you're not convinced that he is one of those guys, I'm not so sure how good $5 million looks. And I love Pius Suter. I think he's playing great. He's proven to be a very, very handy player. I credit to him for taking the moment and doing the absolute best he could have, and doing everything he can. I'm not sure that the way to spend $5 million is on Pius Suter, because where do you really want Pius Suter in your lineup? You want him to be your third center.
I think you're forgetting what then if you don't spend $5 million that way, how else are you spending the $5 million?
I know, I get it, but I get it.
So
I'm just not sure that's if you really want to sit back and have an ideal cap structure, is that really where you want to be chipping, giving money away?
Let me ask you this question. Re-sign Suter.
Sure.
Let's say at 5, or let's say it's 4.5, whatever the case may be. And sign Jack Roslovic, who they have been tied to in the past.
Yeah.
At that point, are you done at center? You've got Pettersson. You've got those 2 guys. You hope Chytil comes back. You got Teddy Bluger in the 4-hole. You got Atu Ratu. You've got 6 guys who can play center.
Yeah.
You're covered against injury. Yeah, you may not have the classic number 2, but you've flooded the position with quality, or the best quality you can muster on your budget without having to peel big assets. Mm-hmm. And, you go into next year and hope you can do it by committee.
The fact Roslovic has been a useful player on a very good team is a good sign. I've long been skeptical of him.
Yeah, me too.
He's not a meter mover, but he's a solid player.
But he doesn't create. He's a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
His assists are at 16 for a full season. Like, that's not a quintessential center for me.
Is he? Even if
they don't have creators off the wing. It's not like they have a winger like even a Verbata. Like guys who could.
I mean,
create
that's
offense.
like if you're telling me you're signing him and Mitch Marner, then I'm going okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're not signing.
But you're not signing Mitch Marner. So what are we talking?
Come on.
I think in isolation I need to see more, because him alone doesn't move the meter for me.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this over the course of the next 5 months or so. Patrick, until then, how about them Whitecaps?
How about, is Lionel Messi going to come? There we go. Lots to talk about.